I never meant for it to happen, but somewhere between late-night talks and stolen glances, I found myself falling for my roommate. The problem? He already had someone who trusted me. I told myself it was harmless, that the feelings would fade, but they only grew stronger. Maybe it was the way he laughed at my worst jokes, or how he'd knock gently on my door when I was working just to hand me a cup of coffee. I knew it was dangerous, but I couldn't seem to stop. Stay with me until the end, and you'll understand how it all unfolded. When I first moved in with Adrian, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. We'd met through mutual friends, both looking for a place in the city, and it just made sense to share an apartment. He was charming, easy to talk to, and carried a quiet confidence that drew people in. His boyfriend, Ethan, seemed perfect for him, successful, polite, and the kind of guy you could imagine in glossy magazine ads. I admired Adrian from the start, but it wasn't love. Not yet. Over time, small moments began to stitch us closer together. We cooked dinner side by side, our elbows brushing in the cramped kitchen. We spent lazy weekends binge-watching shows neither of us truly cared about, just enjoying the comfort of company. Late at night, we'd sit on the balcony with mugs of tea, talking about life, fears, and dreams under the orange glow of the streetlights. I noticed the faint scent of his cologne clinging to the couch cushions, and I found myself memorizing the rhythm of his laugh. Somewhere in those moments, the line between friendship and something deeper started to blur. One evening, he came home quiet, his smile forced. He admitted he and Ethan had been arguing, that things weren't as perfect as they appeared. I listened, trying to offer comfort, but when my hand found his shoulder, it stayed there a little too long. He looked at me, his eyes holding mine for a beat longer than they should have, and the air between us shifted. Then, just as quickly, we both looked away, pretending nothing had happened. From then on, it felt like we were balancing on an invisible edge. We started doing things that felt more like what couples did, grocery runs where we shared a cart, trading inside jokes no one else would understand, falling asleep on the same couch after a long day. In his stories, Ethan was becoming more of a shadow, always busy, always distant. I hated myself for noticing, but part of me hoped those cracks would widen. One night, I overheard him on the phone with Ethan, his voice tight with frustration, his words clipped. I stood in the hallway, torn between wanting to comfort him and knowing that my feelings were crossing into dangerous territory. The night that changed everything started with a storm. The rain pounded against the windows, and when the power went out, we lit candles and opened a bottle of wine. The shadows danced on the walls as we talked, about love, about loneliness, about the things we were too afraid to admit to anyone else. At one point, our hands touched, and neither of us moved away. He pulled me into a hug, warm and steady, but it lingered. His breath was against my cheek, and for a moment, I thought we might kiss. But then, he stepped back, breaking the spell. After that, we didn't talk about what happened. Days passed, and the air in the apartment grew thick with unspoken words. Sometimes he was overly friendly, almost as if trying to prove nothing had changed. Other times, he was distant, lost in thought. I felt caught between wanting him and knowing I had no right to. Every shared glance, every half-smile, carried a weight neither of us acknowledged. In the end, nothing physical ever happened. Adrian stayed with Ethan, and life returned to something that looked normal from the outside. But beneath the surface, it was different. I knew I had crossed an emotional line, and maybe he had too. I often wondered if that made us just as guilty as if something physical had happened. Love, desire, and loyalty are messy things, and the heart doesn't always follow the rules we set for it. We never talked about that night again. Sometimes I think that's for the best. But every now and then, when I hear him laughing from the other room, I wonder if he remembers the way his hand felt in mine, the way the candlelight made the room seem smaller, and the way, just for a moment, we stood on the edge of something we couldn't take back.